Don't forget to save room for dessert. Most gift packages come with 4 delicious caramel apple tartlets. Go to omahasteaks.com.
Repeat after me. I will not touch the fuse box.
I will probably not touch the fuse box.
Sip, do you remember what happened last time?
Yeah, I remember.
What happened?
Half of the city block lost power.
And?
My chicken condo went haywire.
That's right. The chickens ran wild. So what do we do instead?
Call Joe at Ambition Electric and let him handle everything. Look, saved on speed dial.
Ambition Electric, 402-217-3415 or online at ambitionelectric.com.
Hi, Sean Callahan here with Koppel Chevrolet GMC, and it is Truck Month at Koppel, and we are pulling out all of the stops for this gigantic event. The lots are starting to fill, and we have some great deals for you waiting in Louisville. Brand new GMC Sierra Light Duty and new Silverado Light Duty trucks. All trim levels have up to $4,000 in discounts. That's right, up to $4,000 off all new light duty trucks right now at Koppel, so do not wait. Now is the time to buy a new truck, so stop on in or visit us online at koppelcars.com. You must have a trade-in and finance with Koppel. All deals with Roof Credit.
The best way to learn about Southeast Community College is to visit, and you can check out our spaces before you visit in person with a virtual campus tour, an opportunity to see our campuses in Beatrice, Lincoln, and Milford as you learn about our programs and areas of study. There are virtual tours of our learning centers too. We can even take you on a personalized virtual tour. Learn more on our website, southeast.edu/visit SCC. SCC, your path to possible.
You finally finished your man cave in the basement. Brand new furniture, huge TV, and all of your collector's items. You're ready for football season. You were so excited until one bad rain and it is all ruined. Don't risk a flooded basement and countless dollars in damages when it can be avoided. Call John Henry's today for a free sump pump estimate for your home.
435-5555. John Henry's Plumbing.
Nebco is hiring CDL drivers for Ready Mix Concrete, Husker Concrete, and Beatrice Concrete. Nebco offers great pay, medical, and retirement benefits, paid time off, and we pay for CDL training. Apply today to earn an average total compensation of $50,000 to $60,000 your first year driving. From Nebco's beginnings in 1908, it's the employees that have formed the company's solid foundation. Start your career today. Visit nebcoinc.com. That's NEBCOINC.com.
Guys, when I first started with Farrell's Extreme Body Shaping, I weighed in at over 300 pounds. Now, less than a year later, I'm under 200 pounds for the first time since high school. I'm stronger, I'm healthier, and it all began with the Farrell's 10-Week Challenge. 10 weeks of kickboxing, strength training, and guided nutrition coaching to help you reach your fitness goals. Their next 10-week challenge begins on April 8th. If you're wanting to change your life like I have, head to theticketfm.com and click on Enroll Now on the homepage. Plus, get a promo code for a discount just for ticket listeners. Farrell's Extreme Body Shaping.
Attention all Wings fans. 89-cent wings are back on Tuesdays at Buffalo Wings and Rings in Lincoln. Enjoy the best wings in town for boneless or traditional at a price that makes the whole family happy. And now at the Williamsburg Village Wings and Rings, you can enjoy $1.50 tall boys in Bud Light, Coors Light, Busch Light, and Michelob Ultra every day after 7 p.m. and all day on Sundays. Get to Wings and Rings today and make sure to stop by on Tuesdays for 89-cent wings.
If you're in Lincoln, Waverly, or the surrounding area, listen up. Select Plumbing gets it right the first time on a variety of issues for your home and business, including general plumbing, water heaters, faucet and fixture repair, underground sewer and water repairs, backflow testing, and more. Keep your property free from leaks and other issues. Call today for a free estimate at 402-560-6197. Plus, they're hiring service plumbers. If you're in Lincoln, Waverly, or the surrounding area, contact Select Plumbing to inquire at 402-560-6197.
Welcome in to the Corner 3, taking you around the arc of college basketball. From the NAAC to the Pac-12, the WCC to the SWAC. We cover it all now on 93.7 The Ticket. Here is your host, Austin Orman.
That's right. Welcome to it. I feel like I'm kicking off a new era in 93.7 The Ticket broadcasting. The first host, I believe, to do one of these new shows live. It's an honor. It's a privilege. Thank DP and Rebecca for the opportunity to do this. Thank Rico for all his work on the back end, helping get stuff set up. Harrison as well, helping get stuff set up. Nick and Bach, the other producers. Really appreciate them. Again, really appreciate this opportunity to have another hour a week to talk about what interests me. These projects were an awesome idea. From I don't even know who to give credit for the idea to, but essentially what the hosts at 93.7 The Ticket were charged to do was pick an idea, think of a show, go through something that interests them, a passion project, whatever it is. I know we have a couple wrestling shows, maybe a UFC show in the works, an esports show. That's right, 2 weeknights of Amon Green here on the station. So whatever it was that we were interested in, the higher ups, DP, Mark, Rebecca, said, go for it. Go for it. Have an hour. You own this hour. It's yours. Make it what you want, within limit, of course, within reason. I'm not going to go overboard here. But this show, the Corner 3, is mine. It's my idea. The Corner 3, because I'll be joined by two great guests in a little bit. Guys I know, I respect, and appreciate. Guys that follow Nebraska basketball, but like me, have other rooting interests. So I'll introduce them in just a little bit. But also the Corner 3 because of three topics. That's really what this show is going to be. We'll air 8 to 9 here tonight on 93.7 The Ticket. We might stay 8 to 9. We might move 7 to 8. Still working to get that all hammered out for sure. Either way, Monday nights we'll be with you for an hour talking college basketball. Three topics across the wide world of college basketball. And to me, there wasn't really a doubt as to the direction I wanted to go with this show. At this station, I'm lucky enough to work with a Husker Hall of Famer, a 9-year NBA vet in Eric Strickland, who knows his way, around the game of basketball, on the court, the politics, the business side, the human side of it off the court, what goes into getting ready to play in college and in the pros. Obviously, he knows a lot, but he and I don't get to talk a lot of national college basketball. And I teased this with DP a little bit earlier today when he asked me to talk about the show coming up on Old School. The thing about college basketball for me is I find it the easiest sport to just flip up on the TV and watch. It doesn't matter who's playing, doesn't matter where they're playing, when they're playing. Ever since middle school, high school at least, it would be, there's a game on during supper. I get home from basketball practice, from a workout, whatever it was. And while I'm eating supper, everyone else is done since I got home late. I'm watching supper or watching TV, watching a game in the living room with supper. That was just my routine. College football is great. I love it. I love that it's, expanded now to Thursdays, Fridays, and Saturdays. Of course, action on Tuesdays and the odd, Labor Day Sunday game in week 1 of the season. But to me, it's been college basketball. Like the Open said, from the MAAC to the Pac-12, the SWAC to the SEC, Big 10, Big 12. It doesn't matter to me. College basketball, Strick and I talk a lot about the NBA and how it's, so homogenous. It's threes or nothing. It's boring, too much offense, yada, yada. College basketball almost has the opposite problem. And I would say it's in a good way. There's so many different styles that teams play, so many different personalities of coaches. I mean, there's darn near 360 teams in Division I college basketball. So, you watch Alabama play a somewhat NBA style threes and dunks. That's all they do. May or may not have to get into Alabama at some point during this show over the summer. But then you can go to the other end, to a team like Virginia or North Texas, even begrudgingly Wisconsin, the way they grind teams down. They play slow, play a lot of good defense. And there's everything in between, pick and roll, motion, all the different kinds of offenses, the junk defenses, the David and Goliath feels better in college basketball to me. I mean, we just had maybe the best example of that of all time in the smallest, team in Division I last year, Fairleigh Dickinson taking down the tallest player in college basketball this year, Zach Edey. I do get a little romantic about it, and because it's imperfect, because these guys in college aren't stars. They just aren't yet. I mean, yeah, they're good players. Some of them stick around for a year. Some of them it's 4 or 5 that it takes to develop into a star, but it's a bunch of guys in a similar station of life to where I am, just having graduated college a few years ago. really glommed on to college basketball in maybe the most feverish way at the end of high school and into college. So being able to relate to those players to some degree, obviously not being an athlete myself, I can't tell you, for sure what they go through, but guys around my age, taking classes in college, and basketball is just fun. They're learning, they're growing in the game still. And you have the star players, you have the All-Americans, the players of the year, fun individual races in conference. But part of what, to me, makes college basketball fun as well is the coaches, their different styles, their personalities. The NBA, really a superstar-driven league. College basketball doesn't have that. I don't know if college basketball has ever had that or will ever have it to the same level that the NBA is, driven by star players. Transfer portal is like free agency, but it's not the same thing. So those constants in the college game are the official, coaches. Sorry, no, we'll save some ref talk for later. But the coaches, like, Coach Calipari at Kentucky, you had, the staples and Coach K and Jim Boeheim before they step away. Tony Bennett at Virginia, Bill Self at Kansas. There's a lot of names that, kind of rule the sport, that preside over it, the names that you go to right away that you think of the sport. And it's an interesting time too to be engaged in college basketball with all that change, with Jay Wright stepping away, the same offseason Mike Krzyzewski did, Bill Self, who knows what that looks like. Coach Calipari, there are always rumors about him at Kentucky, right or wrong. And again, one of the guys we'll bring on in a little bit, we'll probably have something to say about that fact with Coach Calipari. But anyways, this is the Corner 3. Thanks for tuning in here. 293.7 The Ticket is a part of Ticket Weeknights. If you're watching on the stream, again, Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter have a video version of this available. You're hearing us on the app or on one of those platforms right now because we've got the Royals going over the air. But the point is, if you're watching the stream, you'll see me in a Duke t-shirt. And that's on purpose because here at the Ticket, obviously we're based in Lincoln, Nebraska. A lot of Husker gear being thrown around, and I have plenty myself. I wear it plenty, but I wore this Duke shirt in honor of maybe the most embarrassing professional experience I had in my life. For those of you that don't know, I did used to work at the Husker Sports Network as a producer. So I would work the games, work Sports Nightly there. That was a couple stops ago now before I end up here at the Ticket. But the Duke shirt. Nebraska men's basketball didn't play that night. No game for the Huskers, but Duke did. And they were on the road. So I'm a person that, when I can, likes to match up my wardrobe to what the team is playing. It's my sort of superstition. So, if it's Nebraska and they're at home, I'll find something like a white Husker t-shirt or jacket. I'll wear that. If they're on the road, I'm wearing red, I'm wearing black, something like that. Well, Duke just happened to have a road game, and I'm pretty sure this was a Tuesday night. It was either a Tuesday or a Thursday because we had the Tim Miles show that night. So in the old setup at the Haymarket for HSN, one of my jobs was to set barricades out for the coaches to park in, just to save them a parking spot. They'd get out, move them, park their car, come on up for the show. Well, this would have been hour 2 of the show, I want to say. Yeah, probably hour 2 of the show. So I'm looking out the window, waiting to see if, coach is here. Hadn't shown up yet. It's a couple minutes to showtime. But that was normal. Look out the window. I see the barricades are still there, but the car's parked there. So I figured that coach was on his way up. I may as well, hop down and grab the barricades. Well, grab the barricades just as Coach Miles is getting out of his car. So he and I walk into the building, and you have to take an elevator to get up there. Could have taken the stairs, was not about that, am not about that. Elevator all day for me. So I'm walking with Coach Miles into the building, and he and I were, didn't have a relationship really of any sort, but he's Tim Miles. He's friendly and, trying to make a good impression. I was, trying to be at least somewhat pleasant and sociable, but we get on this elevator. It's a 3-story ride up to the 4th floor. So 4, I guess, if I could do simple math. And Coach Miles sees that I have a blue Duke quarter zip on. As I'm in the elevator with Coach Miles, it dawns on me, hey, probably shouldn't have worn a Duke shirt to a Nebraska coaches show. Wasn't the first time I had worn, blue to the Husker Sports Network at that point, but it's the first time I think it had happened in a coaches show. So Coach Miles and I are on the elevator, and he's asking me, where I got my Duke fandom from. He asked me if I was from North Carolina, if I grew up out there, if I had family that went there. And in a moment of unclear thought, a moment of no foresight in being caught off guard, and honestly brutal honesty, when Coach Miles asked why it was that I rooted for Duke if I didn't have family, if I wasn't from out there, I said, well, Coach, it's because I liked watching basketball in March and needed to pick a team. Yep. I told Coach Miles I wanted to root for Nebraska in March. They weren't there consistently enough, so I felt the need to pick another team. For those who haven't heard the other story behind that, the first Duke game I ever remember was the one, I think it was a 6-11 game. They were the 6 against VCU, and VCU took them down. My favorite color was blue. Duke got a low seed for them. I'm not hopping on the bandwagon. I'm not trying to be the evil empire. I didn't, pick them for anything other than they were on TV. They were blue. They seemed cool. Come to find out, my dad was a Duke fan behind the scenes. He didn't, push that on us like he did the Huskers, but that would have come anyways. So yeah, I told Tim Miles his teams weren't successful enough for me to wear the right colors to work. Hopefully you've had better days at work than I did with that. Well, so that's the premise of what we're doing here. Given my Nebraska fandom, given my Duke fandom, the point of this is, talk a little bit of Huskers when they're in the news, when it's important, but also to give a look around college basketball. Because again, I know that there are a lot of Husker fans listening here that, want in-depth analysis on Husker basketball. And we'll give you some of that, but I want to save most of that for On the Block with Strick and I. That's 2 to 4 weekdays here on the Ticket. So this is going to be more a look at national college basketball headlines here on the Corner 3. When we come back, I'll introduce our two guests. We've got Matt and Landon with me, kind of the inside outsiders, the outside insiders. Came to Nebraska for college. That's where I met these guys. They've studied the team. They know the team. But like me, they have other rooting interests. We'll get a little bit of the backstory. Then we'll dive into the Nebraska ball stuff. With Casey being back, the composition of the roster, X Factors, and wild cards. So that's what's on tap here on the Corner 3. Glad you're along for the ride with us here on 93.7 The Ticket as a part of Ticket Weeknights. The Corner 3 will be right back.
Tailored Landscapes is actively preparing for spring. Things like getting new tree orders, getting equipment ready, and training staff to serve you the best we can. If you haven't already planned, now is the perfect time to figure out a maintenance plan for your yard. We're on the brink of spring cleanups for all of our existing customers and have limited spots left. We trim trees and shrubs when needed and only mulch proper amounts. Give us a call today at 402-432-2572 to set up a meeting with one of our designers and get ready for Tailored Life's grand opening in Bennett.
You know that feeling after a good, hearty meal? The worries of the world just slip away. Time slows down. Nothing but good times and good company. That's what you get with Mary Ellen's Food for the Soul. Mary Ellen's does food right, with a menu that includes smoked wings, pulled pork, brisket, catfish. And don't sleep on their sides, shrimp and grits, collard greens, baked beans. It's food that makes your heart happy. Mary Ellen's Food for the Soul, just east of 27th and Pineland. Let them fix you a plate.
Hey there.
Hi, honey.
Uh-oh.
Remember we told Jamie and Mike about Liberty First Credit Union, how great their checking account and car loans are, the amazing service we get, and how we love being members?
Yeah.
Well, they took our advice. Jamie said how easy it was to move all their accounts and become members. Now they say they're banking with purpose at Liberty First Credit Union.
Learn more about being a member at libertyfirstcu.com. Liberty First Credit Union. Banking with purpose. Member NCUA.
There's a lot of realtors in Lincoln, but don't get overwhelmed by all the names. Ben Bleicher with Professional Realtor Group at Berkshire Hathaway Ambassador Real Estate is your go-to option when buying or selling residential and commercial property. Ben's team offers unbeatable customer service and promises to make the buying and selling process as stress-free as possible. Call Ben today at 402-419-6309 for all your real estate needs. Ben Bleicher with Professional Realty Group at Berkshire Hathaway Ambassador Real Estate. No pressure, just professionalism.
Problem gambling affects more than the gambler. It affects spouses, children, extended family members, and friends. If you are a loved one who's struggling with addiction, contact Choices Treatment Center's helpline at 402-476-2300. That's 476-2300.
Hi, it's Joel Norman, the voice of your Lincoln Stars hockey team. Tune in to 93.7 The Ticket every Tuesday night from 8 to 9 p.m. to hear the latest on the Stars with myself, head coach Rocky Russo, and special player guests.
At first, I was really nervous and intimidated to buy a ring. I wasn't sure what I was getting into.
My experience at Starter Heyman was very easy. I felt like I walked out of Starter Heyman with the ring that was going to make her go wow and say yes.
I love my ring. It is so beautiful.
I absolutely love my ring. I get compliments on it all the time. I always tell them Starter Heyman.
Yeah, we would definitely recommend Starter Heyman.
Yeah, it was great.
We're definitely coming back.
Sauter Heyman Jewelers, Lincoln and Grand Island. SauterHeyman.com.
Hi, it's Charlie Stone again, and with me on the line, Andy Goodyear, General Manager of Honda of Lincoln. Andy, I know how proud you and everyone at the dealership are to earn the prestigious Honda President's Award year after year, 17 times. Tell our listeners what it means to you and your customers.
Thanks, Charlie. Yes, all of us are extremely proud to have earned this award, and I want all of our customers to know it's not just earned by one person's effort. It's the entire dealership. Sales, parts, and our amazing service department.
17 times. Wow. How does that compare to other Honda dealers?
This award is only given to the most elite dealerships that demonstrate excellence. We really do strive to go above and beyond for the ultimate customer experience before and after the sale, Charlie.
That's why for 2022, Honda of Lincoln is once again Nebraska's #1 volume Honda dealer. Come experience the Honda of Lincoln way of doing business, 27th and Yankee Hill Road, or online at hondaoflincoln.com.
Experience the Landmark difference with the next level of dealer support. Landmark, your local John Deere dealer, continually works to have parts on hand the first time you walk in the door. Our internal route system means we can get the parts to you typically same or next day to keep you up and running. At Landmark, we understand time is money. Get more uptime with our after-hours parts and service support on the phone or in the field. Our sales, precision ag, parts, and service teams are ready to serve you this planning season. Stop by your local Landmark today to experience the Landmark difference.
Gaina Trucking is hiring CDL Class A and B drivers. Gaina Trucking guarantees a 40-hour work week year-round, and their strong team culture makes it not a job, but a career. Gaina Trucking offers health, vision, and dental insurance, 401k with company match, an employee assistance program, and other bonus programs. Build a better career today with great team culture at Gaina Trucking. Learn more and apply today at GainaTrucking.com.
Back to the Corner 3 on 93.7 Ticket. Here is your host, Austin Orman.
That's right. We're back here on the Corner 3, and you see two new faces. Let's welcome them in here one at a time. We'll start on the stream, it's the left. To me, it's the right on the computer screen. Our resident Kentucky fan here on the Corner 3, Matt Hardesty. Matt, thanks for joining. Explain to the people how you got your Kentucky fandom.
Half my dad grew up there. So like half my family is from that area, and it was pretty much brainwashed since birth. So knew about that team before any of the teams in Wisconsin, even the Packers. So the #1 and always that's how I would put it.
And then right beneath the both of us in the center of the screen, Landon Wirt, our resident Oklahoma State fan. Landon, explain the Oklahoma State aspect to people.
Yeah, so that is where my father attended college and where a lot of my family members did as well. My family is largely from Oklahoma, though I live in Kansas now. So that's the way I was brought up. One of my favorite memories of my family is we sort of made it a tradition to go to the Big 12 tournament every year downtown at formerly the Sprint Center, now the T-Mobile Center. One of my favorite young early memories is my folks pulling me out of school, which they did on multiple occasions when when Oklahoma State had games on that first day of the tournament when they still play in the afternoon. So that's sort of the upbringing there. And yeah, go Pokes.
Starter Heyman text line 402-464-5685. Let us know who your other team is. We'll see if we can sneak in a word or two about him here. One thing that's very similar between us is Landon is living in the middle of Jayhawk country right now, is that all of us hate Kansas for different reasons. They're obnoxious. Their reign of terror needs to end, and God bless Kelvin Sampson in Houston for that. We'll touch on that another time. But guys, let's get into a little Nebraska basketball. Not the focus of the show long term, but for tonight, I think it's a good jumping off point. Let's start with Keisei Tominaga, his decision to return. One of the most fun Nebraska basketball players but maybe one of the most important, I don't want to call it additions, but most important semi-additions for Nebraska basketball over the offseason. What do you guys make of the 6'2" Japanese sharpshooter's decision to return to Lincoln?
I found it it was massive. I think, especially with the current climate in college basketball, just to get as many returning scorers back as possible and keep some pieces together. That's something that just Fred hasn't been able to do in his time at Nebraska. And to get a fan favorite that after a little bit of time, he lived up to the hype, and he's kind of, I'd say, exceeded the hype from coming in as just kind of kid out of junior college known as the Japanese Steph Curry. To get someone that you can really just drum up excitement and then return just a few of these other pieces as well that maybe weren't the biggest scorers, but due to all those injuries last year, like they all got meaningful minutes and actually played a big part in winning close games down the stretch. So I think with all the movement in the sport to keep this group, and it's not the most returning. It's the middle of the Big Ten even, but just to return this much is a big step in the right direction for the program, and one that's been long overdue.
Yeah, I think the really neat thing too about Keisei last year especially was how he really started to flip the switch in Big Ten play. The past couple of years I've, followed along with Keisei and his Nebraska tenure. One of the things that I've been most interested in is how sort of he adapts to the level of competition when the games get tougher, the opponents get more challenging. And last year in conference play, he really had just an uncanny ability to flip a switch, and Pinnacle Bank Arena became a rather, imposing place for opposing teams to go during conference play. And Keisei, turning it up was a big reason for that. And Matt, you spoke to a very important point. It's not necessarily the number of guys that Nebraska has returning, but the quality of those guys is going to make it, so that they have a real shot to compete in the Big Ten next year. And Keisei coming back is a pretty significant step and something that, Fred Hoiberg hasn't really had that roster consistency from year to year. It's really going to be interesting to see.
So they they retain the services of Keisei Tominaga. They also bring in 4 transfers, and I think it's a pretty good crop of them when you look at Josiah Alec, Rink Mast, Aaron Eulis, and Bryce Williams. Landon, we'll start with you. Which of those 4 do you think was the best addition to the roster?
Oh man, I've got the two really stick out. One I'll touch on briefly. I really think that Rink Mast is this archetypal player that is so cool, and I don't think that Fred Hoiberg's had a guy like him since I want to say George Niang, but that's what he reminds me of. When you put on his tape, the way he can operate in the pick and roll, the way he can pick and pop and shoot threes, like that is really exciting to me. So first of all, really excited to see how Rink Mast fares. But the one that sticks out to me the most has to be Bryce Williams, coming over from a quality program like Charlotte that played in a quality conference in the Conference USA last year that just destroyed teams in the postseason across the board. That was a team that ended up winning 20 games, won the CBI. Bryce Williams was the MVP of that tournament. And, when you watch his tape, the thing that is really interesting to me is that he's a 3-level scorer. He can shoot the 3 at or above average. He can get to the rim, operate in the paint, pretty good on the pull-up too. But I also, a nice thing to see in his tape is the way he operates in the pick and roll game too. Charlotte utilized that pretty heavily with their big man, Ali Khalifa. Him and Bryce would work together pretty frequently. And the way he was able to operate and dribble handoffs, get to the bucket, and also create shots for himself out of the pick and roll is going to be something that I think will be a very, very welcome addition to, the Fred Hoiberg offense at Nebraska.
Matt, same question to you on the transfers. Most impactful, most interesting one.
I have no idea who's going to be the most impactful. Honestly, I do think Nebraska missed on some, this is a good group they're bringing in, and honestly, it fits with what you need to win in the Big Ten, which is important. But you had the chance to bring in a Hunter Salas or a Kerr Carissa, and maybe not Kerr Carissa as much, but especially a guy like Hunter Salas could have really been an X factor for Nebraska. But also, when you're returning enough, as many pieces that have a lot of experience like Nebraska is, you don't need to depend on these guys as much. But I do think Aaron Eulis interests me because honestly, looking at just the way he plays, I thought he would have a little more success at Iowa, but also he didn't really, his style really doesn't fit how Iowa plays. Like he is more of a defensive minded guy, a little bit more undersized than like a lot of Iowa's guards. So honestly, the fit there didn't make sense, and good on him for going to the transfer portal. But with Fred trying to focus more on being a hard-nosed defensive team, Eulis seems like someone that actually could really thrive in this role where, I mean, you don't need him to be taking a lot of shots with the guys around, but I think he's someone that you don't need him to hit, but if he does, it's going to be a really special season. And especially, again, he's got a lot of other guards around him as well, like K-Sage, Jamarcus Lawrence, even CJ Wilcher, plus these newcomers. I think that's a lot of good pieces to work with that really could free him up to focus on defense, I'd say.
We'll get to the roster construction in just a sec here. But Matt, you brought up the hard-nosed, more defensive style. Christian Lincoln on the text line asks, do we assume they'll play a similar style this upcoming season, or will it be more like it was early on with Fred Hoiberg and his earlier teams? I think it's going to be a mix of both. I don't think the scheme is going to change dramatically. I could see them using rink mast in that elbow to even popping out to the three-point line similarly. But that's where I think getting Juwan Gary back from injury is huge to set the tone. Getting Eulis out of the portal, like you said, Matt, with the defensive energy, more what he's known for. And even an energy guy like Josiah Allick. I think he's a guy that's seen a lot of college basketball that will fit into that energy. And even if he's not, the best on-ball or off-ball defender, he's a grown man. He knows what's going on in the college game. He won't be a liability. He'll dig his heels in. He'll work on that end. So I don't think it's going to, look the same schematically necessarily, but I do think there was a legitimate culture shift last year brought about by coaches Ziegler and Howard on the bench. And then really, I think the key additions were Bandamel and Gary, because they brought that toughness, that fight on both ends of the court. They hustled for offensive rebounds. Juwan Gary had a hand in so many of those last year and then set the tone on the other side. So stylistically, it'll be similar, but I still think they accomplish their goals on offense a little bit differently. And let's dive into that with the roster construction. To me, guys, I look up and down this roster and I see guards. I see a lot of guards and a lot of guards that deserve to play. You have Eulis you bring in the transfer portal. You have Tominaga that you get back after a breakout season last year. Jamarcus Lawrence wasn't expected to contribute, but really jumped on the scene after Bandamel went down. Sam Hoiberg forced his way into the rotation. I mean, he's what Johnny Trueblood wanted to be, straight up. God bless Sam Hoiberg and the work he did winning that Maryland game. And then you have Ramel Lloyd, who I think is an interesting kind of guard-wing hybrid who can be really good on offense, and he'll have to keep bulking up on defense. But he's a fascinating piece to me. So 5 guards is a lot. You need depth, but someone in that group is going to be pushed out of the rotation, even though they're a really good basketball player.
Yeah, it's a fascinating construction of a roster, especially when you look at it's the Big Ten. I do think the offense is going to change just because you don't have Derek Walker to rely on for running the offense through him. When times get tough, like they really started to do last year a lot. And I'm kind of curious to see how they use some of these bigs, because they've got a lot of size. I've always liked Blaise Keita has the look of like a Big Ten big man. Kind of reminds you of some of those Maryland dudes that Mark Turgeon had in the late 2010s. That he just seemed to find a new one every year. But at the same time, they're all they're either unproven, had injury problems, or kind of taken a step up in competition. And I mean, you're in the Big Ten, so it's a big, big step up. So I'm kind of fascinated to see if they try to find like a a similar mold for the offense, or if they really start to embrace more of almost like a small ball lineup and just use a lot of wings and kind of like those old Iowa State teams, but maybe without the same amount of tempo.
You
Yeah,
say
hold
go
on.
for it, Lance.
Yeah, I just think that there is still going to be some value in Nebraska trying to do what it did last year, which is go inside out. I mean, Nebraska closes last year 55th nationally in 2-point percentage. Now, Derek Walker was a big reason for that. But if you can get, a combination of Alec and Mass to operate in sort of like the two different, I feel like both of them combined can make at least one Derek Walker and maybe bring a little bit more to the table with, Mass's ability to shoot the three. So I feel like it's still going to be pick and roll. They're still going to try to get to the rim, but where you'd like to see some improvement is the outside shooting. And with the guard play Nebraska, retains and brings in, and even a guy like Bryce Williams, who I mentioned earlier, who's an above average 3-point shooter at Charlotte, there's still the out part of the inside out. And if Nebraska can get the 3-ball rolling this year, even at a little bit higher of a clip than, just under 33% as a team, things could really start to get accomplished here. And the tempo is a big, it's always been a big thing, at least in the earlier parts of Fred Hoiberg's tenure, but they really have seemed to, kind of pick their spots with that and get way more under control. So it's going to be really cool to see how this sort of seasoned group merges and adapts. And I am also, the big men is another thing there that sticks out to me too. I'm really curious to see how Alec fits into the whole equation there.
Is Alec, is he an athletic, bouncy, smaller big, or is he a bigger wing that you play the 3-4 instead of the 4-5? I still don't know.
Landon, you probably watched a little more late night New Mexico games than I did. I was more of a Fresno State guy myself. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on Josiah.
Mainly UMKC, because let's not forget that that's where Josiah started.
Respect to the Roos.
Yes, respect to the Roos. Great program. But I don't know. I mean, he did operate at UMKC. It was interesting because, when I would watch those games, yes, generally speaking, they would keep him on the block. He would post up and operate down there, more reliant on getting rebounds. And in Mexico, he did sort of operate more as a pick and roll guy and play out on the wing a little bit. He was a bit more outside at New Mexico because that team had some size too, in addition to Josiah Alec. So it was a little bit more of a hybrid 4-ish, 5-ish role as opposed to more of a traditional big at UMKC, which does offer some positional versatility, and why I think that there's probably a world in which either Alec or Mast maybe share the floor at times against a taller team like, say, Purdue, or maybe a Keita and Alec situation too. I think that there's a world in which, we see both of those guys, a combination of two of the three on the court at the same time. So, I mean, the versatility that this roster has is just something that really, really intrigues me. And how they deploy Josiah Alec, because he's a versatile player and can finish, in and around the rim in a variety of different ways, defend a couple different positions. I mean, it's just Fred Hoiberg's got a good problem on his hands. He's got a lot of different guys that can fill a lot of different roles.
And I think go ahead.
I was going to just touch on the bigs with that situation. If Alec can, slide between the 4 and the 5, maybe the 3 in this weird supersized lineup, depending who else is on the floor, your only other two bigs on the roster are Rink Mast and Blaise Keita. And I don't know if there are two more different bigs across the country. Rink Mast, the offensive kind of hub and playmaker with some range. Blaise Keita, the defensive stopper on the interior. Let's start with Keita. We saw him last year, hampered by injuries, especially the ankle that kept him off the floor. Showed he could be an impactful rebounder. But what I want to see from Blaise Keita is be more authoritative. No layups, only dunks. Fewer charges, more block shots. Nebraska hasn't had a tone setter on the interior for a long time. And I think if Blaise Keita can take that mental and emotional step forward into, being an actual tough guy on the block, I think that fits in perfectly with Ulis and with Gary to give Nebraska one of those guys at each level of the defense.
Completely agree. I think keeping him healthy would do wonders for this group next year, just to get him consistent playing time and find a rhythm. And I also just think a lot of next year, I mean, as much as you don't want to say it, but it does depend a lot on how the rest of the Big Ten is doing and how they're looking. So it's still hard to tell how they match up against a lot of very different teams next year in the Big Ten. But last year, a lot of those teams did kind of favor Nebraska's style of play with how they were constructed and their efficiency metrics and so on. It was a little bit of a lighter Big Ten than years, like especially since Fred came here. It was a little bit easier of a conference, and I'm curious to see how that evolves this year with the rest of the Big Ten, because that does play a part in it. Like, you don't win, 8 or 10 games in the Big Ten without, getting some breaks against rebuilding teams like Nebraska did last year.
Yeah, the Blaise Keita's development is something that's going to be very, very pivotal to track. At least, in Fred Hoiberg's tenure, Nebraska really hasn't had a legit eraser at the rim. And if Keita can become, and by the way, eraser, using that word to describe a big man, one of my favorite things to do.
100%.
Because that is when you can describe a big man, especially in college basketball, as an eraser, that guy is just, it's a no-fly zone around the rim. But anyways, Blaise Keita, yeah, he was great last year in spots, and he was a really, proven offensive rebounder. But if he can really take the step towards becoming okay, this is the rim, I'm going to protect this paint and just block everything. Obviously that's not, not blocking everything, but his, growth as a defender is going to be something that's going to be very, very important to what Nebraska's ceiling is, I think, because, despite some of the stylistic differences in the Big Ten, you still, 9 times out of 10, it's going to come down to how well you defend the paint and how well do you defend some of the Big Ten's best big men. Because at the end of the day, when push comes to shove, that's going to make the difference between winning and losing these games. For as far as the Big Ten probably still needs to go to win games in March Madness and maybe get away from that, sort of paint-driven, inside-dominated style of play. The fact of the matter is that Nebraska is going to have to figure out how to win, if there's going to be a leap next year, how to win more of those games. And, having Blaise Keita consistently available as a guy to, defend the Zach Edey's of the world, for instance, will be, a massive boost to this Huskers team in 2024.
And I'm very excited in future weeks to really get into some of this new look Big Ten coming up, because boy, I've got thoughts.
It's a fascinating conference. The last position group that we have to talk about with Nebraska then is the wings. And this, to me, is the group that really holds the fascination. And to me, I don't know if it's an X factor group or a wild card group, however you want to phrase it, but Bryce Williams is either a tall, skinny guard, or he's kind of a regular size, kind of athletic wing. Ramel Lloyd in a similar kind of more ball handling oriented frame. Juwan Gary, I think, is a true wing that can slide up to the 4 or emergency 5. CJ Wilcher, I don't think has the ball handling chops that he's shown consistently, so I put him more as a secondary kind of wing guy. And then Josiah Alex in this combination too. These are your versatile pieces that can help you play big, they can help you play small. But again, to me, the key for this group is going to be the 3-point shooting. Because if Bryce Williams can shoot, 37, 38% from 3 or more, that goes a long way. That's a piece Nebraska hasn't had before. Juwan Gary, never going to be a knockdown shooter, but if he can hit the open ones like he did for the most part last year off of drive and kick, that goes a long way. CJ Wilcher, if he can be a spark plug off the bench with his 3-point shooting, get back to that same 38 to 40 range, that's huge. And then Josiah Alec, I don't think he's going to be asked to create, but if he can be a 3-and-D hustle, again, knock down the open ones, he and Juwan Gary could be an absolute nightmare for teams trying to match up with their size on offense and then trying to get around him on defense.
Yeah, I mean, well, a couple of things. For starters, yes, the 3-point shooting is absolutely paramount. I had to go back and, use my reference points here, but under Fred Hoiberg, Nebraska has not been ranked better than, I think 194th was the highest clip nationally, 3-point percentage. Yeah, the disgusted look on your face, Austin, is rather fitting. And the thing with that I'll touch on with Ramel Lloyd that really fascinates me is people sort of forget about the success of the sit-out transfers under Fred Hoiberg, and it kind of hasn't been talked about as much because of NIL and the waiver rules going away, and it's sort of made it, less really important. And of course, Ramel Lloyd isn't a transfer; he's an incoming freshman. But the players that Nebraska had that sat out under Fred Hoiberg, your Delano Bantons, your Derek Walkers, ended up, when they were integrated into the fold, being hugely impactful players. And Ramel Lloyd has essentially had a redshirt year. And like I said, of course, not a transfer, but with a year of development like that, I mean, I'm sure that, the skills he'll have on display will even look different from, his highly acclaimed high school career, of course, at Sierra Canyon. So Ramel Lloyd is a guy that really is one of the absolute true wild cards of this roster, just based on the sole fact that guys with his talent level that have had that year of development and sitting out under Hoiberg have come in and been just ridiculously impactful. So that's a guy that I'm really looking at, as we get into 2024, as someone that could really, really, maybe start, probably start, but really be a huge piece of the team.
Yeah, I'm kind of fascinated to see what his role is with this group. And it's kind of nice that this is a year that Nebraska gets a foreign trip. I think they're going to Spain.
Yep.
Yeah. So I don't know if those games will be streamed or not, but just to see kind of what Fred experiments with those games and just, all these new pieces. I think that's a big reason everyone's doing these foreign trips now, Nebraska included, is because when you bring it, you can only do them once every 4 years, but especially now that you're bringing in all these first-year guys or even your redshirt guys in this case, it's kind of fascinating to, you get a few extra exhibition games really to play with the pieces and see, what you've got in the cupboard.
Okay, last thing for you guys. Again, thanks for jumping on here for some time. The last thing I've got for you, lay out for me your prediction for Nebraska basketball's starting lineup this fall. With the group as we know it, assuming no injuries. Matt, we'll start with you. What's your starting lineup for Nebraska basketball this fall?
Oh, gosh. Honestly, I've thought a lot about next season. I haven't really thought a lot about who Nebraska would actually start. Casey is an obvious one. Also, I'd probably say Rink Mast. Juwan Gary, if he's healthy, I would like to see him.
He should be.
Yeah, I'd like to see him back. I think he's another piece that we haven't really talked about tonight, but big fan of what he brings to a team. He started at Michigan, moved to the SEC, and came back, but he's another one of those guys that's made for the Big Ten. So let's see, I've got Casey, Gary, Rink Mast. Probably Bryce Williams. No.
It's your starting lineup.
What?
It's up to you. It's your starting lineup. If you think he is great, if not, leave him out.
I know this is tough though, because it's like you've got. I don't know. It really just depends. I'm glad I'm not being paid to do this because it's like you got a lot of guys that seem kind of even-footed, but yeah, I guess I'd throw Ulis in there too, just for a starting true point guard, but wouldn't be surprised if by midseason that turns into like a Jamarcus Lawrence or something. If he's
all right, Landon.
No idea.
Landon, you're starting five.
Yeah, Ulis definitely the point. The Big Ten familiarity sort of wins out there in the veteran savvy. It'll be interesting to see how this goes as the season progresses. But for starters, I think Ulis, Casey definitely. That's sort of a layup there. The 3 and 4 spots, I think, are the ones that are far and away the most challenging to decide because I would start Rink Mast at the 5. And then at the 3 and 4, I would probably go Juwan Gary and CJ Wilcher. I do agree, Matt. Juwan Gary is a guy that we definitely need to talk about way more because he was so important in the first part of the season and a little bit of conference play. And I don't know. I feel like CJ Wilcher is really due for a consistent, really solid, strong year. And it's a guy that I've quite enjoyed watching and seeing him develop. And I think that he's a guy that might be ready for, a next step forward. So going with a little bit of familiarity in my hypothetical starting five here.
I like it, but here's the right answer for both of you. Aaron Eulis starts at the beginning of the year. Ramel Lloyd takes his spot shortly after Christmas. I think you also bring that edge off the bench, but I think that familiarity to get off on the right foot is huge. Casey is a slam dunk. I don't think Nebraska has seen anyone like Bryce Williams in a long time. I think the combination of his offensive game, his length, his shooting ability gives Nebraska a dynamic it hasn't had in a long time. I mean, Hanif Cheatham was maybe the outline, but I think Bryce Williams is more athletic and a better shooter. So he's my 3. Juwan Gary, if he's fully healthy, absolutely at the 4. If he's still recovering, I think I throw Josiah Allick in there, but I'm banking on and hoping for a full recovery for Juwan Gary. And I have Rink Mast in there. I do think that there's going to be a lot of pressure put on Eulis and Gary to start defensively, but I think Mast is fine. I don't think there's anyone in the Big Ten like Hunter Dickinson that's going to stretch him out to the perimeter where he's maybe a little bit of a liability. He's a big enough body that knows how to handle things down in the post, and I think that's what he'll be asked to do. So there you have it. There are Nebraska basketball starting 5 predictions. Matt Landon, thanks a ton for hopping on, guys. We'll talk more Cats. We'll talk more Pokes, hopefully, in the future. But thanks a ton for jumping on.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, of course. Thank you, Austin.
This is fun to be. The gang's back. It's fun.
The gang is back indeed. That'll do it for this segment. I'll put a bow on the show when we get back here to the Corner 3.
You're listening to the Corner 3 on 93.7 The Ticket. More college basketball analysis after this timeout.
This is Bud Seinhorst, President and CEO of LIBA, the Lincoln Independent Business Association. Join us every Saturday from 9 to 10 a.m. on 93.7 The Ticket for the LIBA Business Hour, as we discuss local business and highlight those who are thriving in the Lincoln area. It's the LIBA Business Hour, Saturdays from 9 to 10 a.m. on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
When you're high, you feel different. You think different, you talk different, you draw different, you listen to music different, but you probably knew that. Problem is, you also drive different, and not in a good way. That's why driving high is illegal everywhere. So if you're high, just don't drive. Make a plan to get a sober ride. Because if you feel different, you drive different. Brought to you by NHTSA and the Ad Council.
Victor deployed for the first time to Afghanistan in 2003. At 4 a.m, my phone rang. They said, "I regret to inform you that your husband was wounded in action." Victor sustained a moderate traumatic brain injury. I was doing school full-time, and I was also then caring for Victor. One of the most important elements of caregiving is taking care of yourself. I just didn't want to forget that I also had goals and that I also had a life. What I did is I challenged Victor to meet me halfway. There are almost 6 million military and veteran caregivers across the nation. We have our own journey, and we can fulfill that journey at the same time that we are helping our loved one.
Visit aarp.org/caregiving for a free military veterans guide to navigate your caregiving journey and better care for your loved one and yourself. Brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
The Ticket Water Cooler.
Keisei Tominaga is returning to Nebraska. Just elevates the ceiling of what Nebraska basketball can be this upcoming year. This feels good. Nebraska basketball feels good going in.
When you think of Keisei Tominaga, you think of three, right? And obviously he shot 40% from 3-point range this last season. Just a highlight waiting to happen with him. And I believe that his cuts off the ball on the offensive end and his ability to finish quickly, he just catches it and finishes it all in one motion. I think that's going to be extremely important for him.
On 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
1 in 3 adults has prediabetes. 1 in 3. That means it could be you, your football buddy, your football buddy, or you, your best man, your worst man. You, your dog walker, your cat jogger. While 1 in 3 adults has prediabetes, with early diagnosis, prediabetes can be reversed. Take the risk test at doihaveprediabetes.org. That's doihaveprediabetes.org.
Wait, did they just say 1 in 3 adults has prediabetes? That's 33.33333% of adults. That means it could be me, my boss, or my boss's boss, or me, my favorite sister, or my other sister. That's 7 members of my 21-person romantic book club. Wait, the 1 in 3 could be me, my karaoke partner Carol, or my karaoke enemy Jeff. I'm going to take the risk test at doihaveprediabetes.org.
Brought to you by the Ad Council and its pre-diabetes awareness partners.
The Drive with AD and Raf.
Was this season a stepping stone or a stone in the shin?
Want to think that it's a stepping stone, but unfortunately, I think the people that we're going to lose are going to be back in the same situation. I think again next year you're going to have to find a few hitters and you're going to find some pitching. So unfortunately, I think it's not a stepping stone.
You have to replace your first baseman, your second baseman, your shortstop, your center fielder, your Friday night starting pitcher, your Saturday night starting pitcher, 3 quality relievers, your backup third baseman, backup catcher, and backup infielder.
Weekdays from 8 to 10 on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com. Back to the Corner 3 on 93.7 The Ticket. Here is your host, Austin Orman.
That's right. I'm with you for another few minutes here on the Corner 3. Great first hour of the show. First show, I guess. We're not going multiple hours, at least not yet. Thanks to Matt Landon for hopping on there in that middle segment, helping me break down the returns, the additions to Nebraska men's basketball, and some potential lineup combinations. But to finish out the show, we're going to talk about something that's been on my mind for a minute, and that's Florida Atlantic. No, I'm not still starry-eyed over their March Madness run to the Final Four, although it was cool, although I respect the heck out of it. Florida Atlantic has been on my mind because the preseason top 25s have been coming out. Obviously, way too early. Obviously, we're many months away from the start of college basketball season. But you look up and down these lists, well, you don't really have to look down that far to find Florida Atlantic, of all programs, again, fresh off their Final Four run last year, being ranked inside the top 10 in a lot of these way too early preseason top 25s. But even inside the top 5, that I don't fully understand. I'll lay out the case for and against Florida Atlantic in the preseason top 5. The case for is that they get everybody back. Everybody except one player, Michael Forrest, returns to Coach Dusty May's team. Of course, he signed a big extension to stay in Boca Raton over the offseason. All but one player's back from a team that won 30 regular season games last year. They won the Conference USA regular season title, as well as the tournament title on their way to the Final Four. They played a fun style. Again, not a huge team, but one that did it from the perimeter. They were gritty, played situational defense really, really well. And they were a lot of fun. They dominated Conference USA last year, bringing everybody back. You think that's a good place to start? Well, here's the case against Florida Atlantic. Case number 1 is that they're moving to the American Athletic Conference. That's right. Houston and UCF, as well as Cincinnati, are on their way out. And the American is adding a lot of new teams, including UAB, Charlotte, North Texas, Rice, and Texas San Antonio, UTSA, as well as Florida Atlantic. A lot of places Florida Atlantic hasn't gone before, styles they haven't seen before. And with all this conference realignment, I mean, I know that these musical chairs games are happening all over the place, but this is still, a Power 6, maybe 7 conference. I suppose the 6th would be the Big East and probably rank the American there after it. But it should be a step up in competition when you add SMU to the schedule. You add Memphis to the schedule, a Tulane team that had its moments up and down. Tulsa with Frank Haith has been here and there. Wichita State also in there. I don't know what the Shockers are going to be. That's another team I want to dive into this offseason. But I do think, generally speaking, that this will be a step up in competition for the Owls. The other argument I have against Florida Atlantic is, look what happened to North Carolina. The way that team fell apart after its surprise national championship game run in year 1 under Hubert Davis. Not year 1 for Dusty May, but sometimes bringing everyone back means they get a little too comfortable. I think we saw that with North Carolina, and of course, some rumors behind the scenes there. I'm less worried about chemistry issues with this Owls team than what ended up happening with North Carolina. But I worry that there's too much familiarity. The guys get, big heads, try to do too much, take on more after they had their star turns last March. So I do think there are warning signs there for Florida Atlantic. All that to say, they'll still be good. I find it hard to believe that they will have a huge drop-off to missing the NCAA tournament and having their season on the brink of collapse multiple times, like last year's preseason number 1 at North Carolina did. And yes, I will continue to rub that fact in because, again, wearing a Duke shirt, they're my second team. I'm going to keep doing that. But Florida Atlantic's going to be good. Don't get me wrong. They're fun. I'm excited to watch them. But I'm mostly disappointed that we're ranking them in the top 5 or even the top 10 to some degree, because I worry we're setting them up to fail. With that step up in competition, the sequel's never as good as the original. It's hard to follow that up. Is it a Final Four or bust season for Florida Atlantic? I find it hard to believe for a team that, hadn't made the tournament, I don't think ever, that hadn't won the conference title, that marched its way to a Final Four by the skin of its teeth in some cases, won some tight games, beat some teams that shouldn't have. They earned everything, every inch, every win they got last season. They deserve their flowers. I think they got them, but I don't want us to set them up for disappointment and failure, us as a college basketball consuming general public, because the more expectations we place on a mid-major, even if they just have a regular good season, if it's not historic, if it's not Cinderella, we're going to crush them. Oh, they aren't as good. Oh, they brought everyone back. Oh, how did they fall short? Really, the only analog to what Florida Atlantic can do this year is what we saw in 2010 and 2011 with Butler. That's essentially the story we're talking about Florida Atlantic needing to write for this season to not be considered a disappointment or a failure. And I think that's unfortunate. I wish Coach May and the Owls the best of luck this season. We'll be following them. But my advice to you, my warning is don't overrate them. Let them be fun. Let them exist. Let them be who they are. Follow along. Enjoy them. But don't crush them if things don't go exactly the same as they did last season. That'll put a bow on a great first week here of the Corner 3. Again, it's been awesome kicking off a new little summer era of ticket weeknights here on 93.7 The Ticket. Again, big thanks to DP, Rebecca, Mark for seeing this project through in action. Big thanks to Matt and Landon for hopping on last segment to talk Nebraska basketball. And thanks to you for listening. I'll talk to you tomorrow during On the Block. We'll be out at Buffalo Wings and Rings at 40th and Old Cheney. That'll be On the Block. And then a week from now, I'll talk to you again on the Corner 3. For everyone else, I'm Austin. It's been fun. We'll do it again soon.
You're listening to the Corner 3 on 93.7 The Ticket. More college basketball analysis after this timeout.
Spring is here, and Acres has special financing on all John Deere lawn tractors and zero-turn mowers. Get your yard looking great and use John Deere's wide selection of attachments to landscape your property to perfection. And for a limited time, with a purchase of a new John Deere mower, get up to $200 to apply to the steel power tool of your choice. From trimmers to chainsaws, gas or electric, Acres is your home for steel products and service. Acres, solutions for every field.
This is Lincoln's home for sports talk on the FM dial. The home of Kansas City Royals baseball. KNTK FM Firth, 93.7 The Ticket.
Sandhills Global is hiring. Check out sandhills.jobs for more information. Sandhills is looking to fill hundreds of new openings in sales, traveling support, software development, web design, and more. Sandhills has a professional culture and is fast-paced with a focus on growth, innovation, and leading-edge technologies. Career and internship opportunities are available at our global headquarters in Lincoln, Nebraska. Apply today at sandhills.jobs.
Dance like a dad. It's a great way to make a moment with your kids. First, I hold my hands out like they're on a steering wheel. Then I look over my shoulder. Next, I put it in reverse. Visit fatherhood.gov. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
If you came across someone struggling with hunger, how would you recognize them?
By their clothes,
their age,
the way they speak. Hunger can be hard to recognize. Learn why at IamHungerInAmerica.org. Brought to you by Feeding America, 200 Food Banks Strong, and the Ad Council.
Turning my pain into purpose is pretty much what